being hosted by Meshmix Media. On behalf of them and other associates, I personally welcome each of the panelists to this web series. Srinivasan Balasubramaniam, Chief Executive Officer, International Aerospace Manufacturing Private Limited. Sri Uma Maheshwar, Chief Consulting Engineer, GE Aerospace India. Sri Hardik Someshwar, Senior Manager, Strategy in India, Customer and Account Manager, Collins Aerospace. Sri Mayank Dalmia, who's going to join us shortly, co-founder in Wave Mechanics. Sri Venkatesh Mudragalla, co-founder and COO, J Aerospace. And of course, since morning is with us, Fabian Vincent, Director, Aerospace Business Unit, Marcos. A warm welcome to all of you, sir. Let me briefly touch upon today's web session on aerospace sector on the topic Soaring Ahead, Unpacking India's Aerospace Growth and Opportunities. India's aerospace growth is expected to play an increasingly important role in the global market, with projections valuing the domestic aerospace market at 30 billion by the close of 2030. Likewise, the DGCA, the Director General of Civil Aviation, recorded a massive increase in domestic air passenger volumes during fiscal 22-23, signaling a robust demand for air travel and strong recovery trajectory. This growth presents both challenges and opportunities for India's aerospace manufacturers, suppliers, and innovators as they work to increase the demand for They work to meet the increasing demand for new aircraft, components, and service-related MRO. India has also become a key player in aircraft manufacturing and aerospace component production, thanks to its strength in precision engineering, metalworking, additive manufacturing, and of course, the digital twin technology. Of late, India as a country has attracted major investments from global aerospace giants and increasingly seen as a destination for high-value manufacturing in this mission-critical sector. With this small brief, I invite all the panelists once again and kindly request to make them their opening remarks on the topic Soaring Ahead, Unpacking India's Aerospace Growth and Opportunity. Let's start with Srini, sir.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Venkatesh, Hardik, Uma, and Fabian. It's my pleasure meeting you all. As rightly pointed out by Suresh, we are in the aerospace side. We are in a best situation of the last many years, and it provides huge opportunities, particularly for the business from India. There are a few important factors that are driving that. I want to just touch upon that. One is about I don't want to talk about the defense side because we know that how that is played geopolitically. So I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the civil aviation side of the business, which, the passenger traffic from India, as rightly said by Sekal, it's growing at a CAGR of 7 to 9% per annum, and it's likely to reach 520 million by 2037, half a billion from current level. Is that number likely to happen or not? If you check the history, in the last 10 years, it has already doubled or more than doubled, 2014 to where we are today, 2024 in India. So it's likely to happen. So that's the checkpoint for us. And the fleet size likely to grow up from wherever it is, like 700 to cross 2000 by 2038. And the airport, from the infrastructure side, is the number of airports, whatever currently you have around 140, it's likely to cross 250 by 2040. Or people, or even the Civil Aviation Ministry is talking about going towards 300 by 2047. There's a huge jump. And of course, availability of skilled pilots for that. There are training academies started by the Tatas or various people. No, it's going to happen further. And that definitely puts India in a strong position in the global map. And coming to the supply side of it, so the demand side of it, this is what is pulling. And of course, needless to talk about the MRO side, which is again growing very fast. And government has kind of tweaked down the policies in the last year about the taxes, the duty structures, and kind of the incentives. And coming to the demand side of it, this is a huge story going to happen from India on the supply side. There's a huge momentum picking up from all kind of commodities. To talk about the precision machine components, where India historically has demonstrated the quality levels required at the global aerospace industry, or about the raw material side, the input side, the forgings or the castings. Though a lot more work has to happen in that area, but there is a good beginning that's happening from that side. And on the electronics and electrical, something like the wiring harness or the avionics side, there's a huge opportunity from India. And to manage the global volume requirements, India is well positioned in terms of the resources required, in terms of the technology or the human resources or the capital. From every aspect, India is well positioned to meet the challenges. And also with the geopolitical situation, even in the civil aerospace side, with the latest changes happening in the US side, it is going to be an advantage for India in the coming years. That's my piece of discussion starting. Thank you, everyone. Over to you.
Venkatesh?
Thank you for having me part of this panel. Quite excited to share my thoughts today with everyone. And just adding on to what Sini was sharing, today, if you look at India is one of the top 3 markets, both for commercial and defense aircrafts, right? With tailwinds that we are seeing in the Indian aerospace industry, there is a natural gravitas because we are being a very large consumer for the aircrafts in the world. There's a natural gravitas to also put in more work and do a lot of work here in the country. But unfortunately, today, if you see, while we are a top 3 markets in terms of the market, but we are about 19th or 20th in terms of the overall industry. So there's a lot of gap that we can fill there. I think with some of the initiatives that are being taken internally, both by government and the industry, I see there's a lot of opportunity for us here. And like Sini mentioned earlier during the conversation, with the geopolitical tensions and the equations of China with the Western countries, I think there's a new opportunity that has opened up for India. I think there are some actions that we need to take right now to propel in that direction. So there's a great opportunity for all of us to create a meaningful impact in aerospace industry as a country.
Mr. Hardik?
I echo what Sini and Venkatesh said. So, I want to talk about our perspective. We've been in India for past 27 years, and we've leveraged India for various reasons. We started off with cost reasons. We started leveraging India for obvious reasons, and that's how our journey in India began. We started off with a small little MRO back in 1997, pivoted it to manufacturing, added engineering services, qualified several suppliers, and Sini is one of our suppliers. We qualified several suppliers, Tata's, where Venkatesh worked. We worked with them very closely. So we've developed the entire ecosystem, and eventually we have realized India is not just about cost. India offers a value, significant value in addition to cost. And I'll just want to highlight a couple of metrics there. Number one is innovation, right? From our India center, we've filed more than 100,000 patents and trade secrets. That's actually comparative advantage. That gives you a winning advantage in the marketplace. There are examples where for certain product lines, we've taken over full product line responsibility, right from design, development, testing, manufacturing, to delivery to end customers, including the FAA or ESI airworthiness certification, which again provides you significant value. Now you're able to win contracts which you were not able to win. You're able to capture markets that you were not able to capture. So all this is said and done. So first part was cost. We've started pivoting to value. There's also talent in certain niche areas. For an example, cybersecurity, AI, ML. You just can't find people elsewhere in the volume that you can find in India. So that's another very important advantage India brings in. And then you club it with the market that India offers, third largest civil aviation market, third largest defense market. I think there is a powerful combination. So as Collins Aerospace, we've leveraged the country for many years, and now we're starting to think about how do we leverage all that we've built. By the way, 6,000 plus people in the country. We export $500 million worth of goods and services. We source more than 100 million plus parts out of India. Now we're starting to think, how do we leverage all that we've developed in India to support the market. Now the market's maturing. The civil aviation market that's growing, as Sini said, and defense market too, right? Defense market's maturing. There are a lot more indigenous programs that have come to fruition, a lot more orders being placed. So how do we pivot, not just for cost and not for the bottom line growth, but also for top line growth? And that's how we view India. We view India as a very strategic place.
Bonjour, Mr. Fabian. Can you take this question, the opening remarks, please?
Yes, I can. Yes. Morning, everyone. I'm speaking here on purpose, of course, of Marpos. So on our perspective, we can see two things happening, actually, from two perspectives. On the manufacturing side, we can see that there's a growing demand in India for technology that ensures processes to be under control. And here, Marpos has been offering all sorts of technologies in there. And we can see that these technologies are key to the supply chain to provide the expected quality, which is, I must say, in this industry, a raising question and a very important element. On the second hand, what we see also is on the MRO, this MRO business is striving, growing with almost double digits worldwide. And there are question marks about where can we find the right products, the right suppliers, where can we find the right skills. And definitely, I think India here has a key role to play for that kind of needs. Right. Thank you.
Mr. Umar?
Yeah, so let me start off saying that actually India has missed the bus in terms of playing a significant role in aviation. So this is really India's time, the way I look at, the folks have already talked about some of the factors. So we are the third largest market for civil aviation, one of the largest market for defense aviation. That being said, we're also one of the fastest growing economies. So that is also going to fuel many other, the aspects of ecosystem development, which is really, really essential. So that's one side. There's a market, there is an opportunity. At the same time, I also see from a technology standpoint, there is a huge disruption. And I don't think India had any advantage in the past as compared to what we have today, because the future is Industry 4.0. It is digital physical systems, and we can actually leverage the digital talent, the huge the skill set that, coupled with the third factor I would say is really the active government policies, whether it is related to defense, modernization, make in India. There are many different aspects which are going to fuel the aviation market. And lastly, I wanted to say that let's also not ignore that it's not just India. We are geographically positioned in such a nice way that actually this entire region is one of the fastest growing market for civil aviation, considering Middle East, and China and adjacent markets. So now the question is, what's the role that India can play? How can we leverage these opportunities? But as I say, this is probably the best time. I want to compliment you for organizing this session at a time when we should be really thinking of what's the role. Thank you.
Mr. Mayank Dalmia, you just joined us. Can you make the opening remarks on the topic, Soaring Ahead, Unpacking India's Aerospace Growth and Opportunities, please?
Yes, apologies for joining late, everyone. Very good morning to you all. My name is Mayank Dalmia, and I'm representing Wave Mechanics and Comavia Systems. Just a quick 30-second intro. So Wave Mechanics is a precision manufacturer. We do everything from machining to casting to sheet metal to finishing, primarily for the export market. Comavia, on the other hand, is primarily in avionics test solutions for the domestic market, as well as electronics manufacturing. I believe, my colleagues have covered the opening remarks quite thoroughly. From my side, I am contrarian by nature. So I would like to, throw in the added element that we work both on the civil side as well as the defense side. On the civil and commercial side, fair enough, there is extremely strong tailwinds. India is beautifully positioned for the future. On the defense side, however, I have some contrarian views. As a buyer, yes, India is a very important buyer and a very important strategic partner for the West going forward in the future. But as a domestic defense manufacturing base, besides supplying to Indian aerospace and defense primes such as HAL or BEL or BDL, how much can India really capture the global defense strategic market, working with large companies like Thales or Lockheed Martin or BAE Systems? That for me is a question and something that needs more focus. As you can imagine, all of these countries have their own industrial bases, especially the large ones like Germany, France, UK, or USA. Defense, by its very nature, is a strategic industry. They will always need some local manufacturing. So yes, while I do see India taking a large pie of the work which will be moved outside the domestic countries abroad, but that being said, there will still always remain a large industrial base in all of these countries. That cannot be ignored, and they would, of course, be taking the lion's share of any manufacturing that would take place there. So that is a question that I grapple with, quite often.
Thanks a lot for the opening remarks. Let's deep dive into the technical sessions now. Srini sir, you can start. While talking about market insights and outlook, with India's aerospace sector projected to reach a valuation of 30 billion by 2030, what key factors do you believe will be driving this growth? And how can the stakeholders leverage these aspects?
That's a very, very right question to ask at this point in time. And then that's the preparation, or that's the action required from all the people here and the industry, plus the government. So I'll talk about what is in our hand. I mean, I don't want to talk about something which we want others to take, particularly from our side, what we do as Rolls-Royce or as IAMPL from India to penetrate the opportunities, whatever we have. I'll talk about the basic things. First thing is the speed to, there's an opportunity available in front of us. And what's happening is it's not that the new aircrafts are, of course, the new aircrafts are coming in, but the systems inside are not new. There are already global supplies. The demand is new, but the supply side is already existing. It is not that the kind of the OEs or the Airbus are going, or they have options. I mean, of course, if India is not doing it, they already have an incumbent supply chain which is already managing this demand. So the opportunity in front of us is to replace the incumbent. It is not that the additional capacity is getting created all over the world. So which is not good for the overall from the industry perspective. But from an Indian perspective, what we need to do is, when there's an opportunity, the opportunity is coming, you have to replace the competition. Supply chain elsewhere else in the world. The customers expect you to take this opportunity but respond with the speed. Basically, what is required for them is a competitive cost, high quality delivery. I mean, all time. Delivery delivering the right products all the time and every time. That is very, very important. And second, most important thing that they expect is like transparency in terms of sharing the right method validations, the system adherence, everything. They want a transparency in such a way that you'll have to give a feel, or you'll have to definitely give them an experience which they have not. For example, today India is like maybe the fourth vendor or fifth vendor in the supply chain, because there's already a supply chain which is existing. It's all solved problems. It's not that you are going and solving a problem, new problem. No, it's all solved problems in terms of supplies. What experience we can provide is, what is the competitive cost, which will come in their balance sheets, obviously. The next thing is, what is that wow factor India can create to those guys who want the product, which they have not experienced with the other supply chain else in the world. The one point all of you spoke about already is the digital experience. The supply chain in India is very young, and you are going to replace that with an experienced supply chain elsewhere in the world. the customers or the consumers to believe that India is capable of delivering a world-class quality better than anybody and at a speed which is better than anybody else. So you'll have to make people to believe that you are going to do it. For that, the digitization and sharing that live whatever you are doing, even you sit 16,000 miles apart from US, but you'll have to make people to believe that you are really doing it. And that is where the digital systems are very important. And then giving access transparently to those guys sitting there to believe that what you are doing is as per the timeline and as per the expected requirements. So that is very, very important. The digitization plays the next very important role to enhance the speed. The next one is quality system implementation as copy paste or with an improvement from elsewhere to compete better. That is very, very important. And some of the special processes what are required for the industry is not yet available in full in India with everybody as an industry. So it's all available with the big players like a few of us, but it is not available. The next level of supply chain is not yet established in India. How we all take that as a responsibility, collective responsibility as an industry to develop that as an ecosystem from India, that is going to make a kind of a game which can be, where it is like a synergy. That's the creation of synergy from the supply chain is very important for us to succeed together. And the last one is, in my view, the raw material. Vertical integration of supply chain is very important. The raw material availability from India, it is available in India, but how do we qualify them? How do we kind of support those raw material manufacturers, get them up to the system levels that are required elsewhere, equivalent to elsewhere in the world or better than that. So that training and exposing them to the global systems and taking that as our responsibility is going to be the next important activity required from all of us. That's my view, Shekhar.
Mr. Hardik, would you like to take this question?
No, this is a very pertinent question. And I think you asked, what is driving the growth, right? And I covered that in my earlier remarks. There is talent, population is young. It is viewed both ways, right? It is viewed as a positive as well as sometimes negative. Do the folks have a high level of experience? But I kind of agree with the remarks that Sini made. And specifically, if we were to talk about manufacturing, yes, there's a lot of machining work that's done. There's a lot of machining capabilities. But do we have qualified raw material mills? That's a critical success factor. You look at some of our competitors, we're talking about China plus one strategy. China has its own sources of mills, aluminum, titanium, Inconel, and that's something which is critical. If we were to grow, we need to qualify our mills, and this will not happen by one company's effort. It'll have to be an ecosystem effort, some sort of consortium, and we probably need to pull in government as well. We've started some of this at our level. We've started talking to the governments as well, but that's going to be one of the critical success factors as far as supply chain is concerned. The second critical aspect that Shini talked about was special processes. Many of these parts need those special processes. The investments are not significantly huge. The special processes exist, but again, you need to pull in demand, you need to qualify them, and make sure global OEMs have belief in those special processes. Unless we do that, things are not going to change. The other big opportunity on the supply chain side is, as a country, we've been very good at precision manufacturing. But what about electronics? Electronics is another big commodity. As we see the trend for future of aircrafts, they're all going to be electrified aircrafts. Some level of maturity, your systems will become electrified. You instead of hydromechanical actuator, you'll have electronic actuators. So electronics, I believe, is another big opportunity for India. And I'm glad that government of India has started several initiatives that are PLIs, but I think we have a long catch-up game to play as far as electronics is concerned. Switching the foray into engineering technology aspects. We've done a lot of engineering technology work, but it all started with support. We slowly transitioned to taking a lot more ownership for certain work packages. But I think we need to start thinking from a values system standpoint, end to end. Can we look at certain product lines? What are those product lines for each business and as a country? What that makes sense end-to-end value chain if we can add value from India, right? From technology development, thinking about the future of a product line over the next 5-10 years. Designing that product here, having all the delegations, testing it, qualifying it, DO 160, DO 270, 178, all of this certification testing capabilities do exist, but I think we got to work further on it. We have a lot of infrastructure with the PSUs. How can that be made available for private companies to use? And then, of course, leverage supply chain. I think we need to think from a value system perspective if we were to tap into this larger opportunity, rather than thinking myopic view of supply chain, manufacturing, engineering, or the technology development. We've got to think value system.
Mr. Uma?
Yeah, I would say that if the biggest challenge that we need to really overcome is the mindset. We have been always thinking inward, right? If you look at the aviation aerospace ecosystem in India, it was highly focused around the government entities so far. Now, government is obviously opening it up, but we need to really think. When there is a huge opportunity to be a leader in aerospace, what is that we need to do strategically so that we can be known as a prudent, aviation aerospace ecosystem. So I wanted to tell, 2-3 aspects here. So let's look at, government, industry, and academia. These are the 3 important entities that it can enable, this ecosystem. And considering the fact that, India didn't have this ecosystem, and, there are many countries, particularly the developed countries, had these ecosystems for several decades. We cannot be going in a linear fashion, assuming that we would be, one day leader. It will take, centuries. So we need to really think non-linear, and that's the mindset that we need to change. So first and foremost is the concept of thriving in aerospace comes from, aerospace clusters. We don't have aerospace cluster. You can, broadly say maybe Bangalore is some kind of a cluster. We don't have a cluster. So we need to really set up a mega, state-of-the-art digital, physical aerospace ecosystem, which should be really the future, futuristic kind of a concept. So that's what I would, request the Indian government or state governments really to look up to and set up this. And the second thing is there is a lot of investment in terms of the P&E, the testing facilities, manufacturing facilities. None of the private companies have such amount of profit so that they can go and just buy these facilities or set up these facilities. It's impossible. However rich may be the public, the private or public sector companies. So government needs to actually set up this infrastructure. And there are, well-established models from Europe and US particularly, where government actually sets up. They actually fund technology development. So we need to really adopt some of these practices which are proven over a period of time. So that's the role of government. Of course, they have good policies to invest, to attract investment and those things. So that's the role of the government. Second, academia. If you look at the skill set, we don't have the latest or the contemporary skills. I'm sorry to say, but take any of the best institutes, academic institutes in India, we lag in terms of the expertise. So we need to really change the paradigm of the academic institutes. And again, if you look at the Western world, there is a huge collaboration between academia and industry, so that the academic institutions really teach what is more relevant and what is more going to be, contemporary and futuristic. So we need to really change the entire educational system and, make sure that it is going to complement, what government is trying to do. And third is really the importance of the industry. So, my friends from the other multinational companies can vouch for it. Definitely we have huge talent. Okay, but however, we have invested, so much of money, time, and a lot of resources to bring us to certain level. Now we need to continue For example, our R&D investment of the Indian companies is very, very minuscule. Okay, so we need to really invest in R&D. We need to invest in skill development. Okay, because we will talk about some of the special aspects of aviation industry. It's not like other industries, so skill is very, very important. So industries have to focus on R&D, skill development, and more importantly, I would say strategic partnerships. We cannot learn everything on our own. So if we can actually have strategic partnerships with some of these multinational companies, best-in-class companies, we can actually accelerate our progress towards becoming one of the leading country in aerospace ecosystem.
Mr. Fabian?
That's a very interesting topic, actually. I would raise this as a macro side where I think, and I heard what was said here, and I think it makes very much sense to me. I think first and foremost, it has to be coming from the top. I mean, yeah, I think that the Indian government must take the stake there and try to build the fundamentals so that this industry can strive and build up in India. So it has to come from the top in that sense by all sorts of incentives and openings and possibilities. The second thing I think is very important is you cannot build an industry if you do not have the skills, if you do not have the universities, if you do not have the people there to build those equipments and to make them work. So it is important. And I think India has lots of resources in terms of engineering and capabilities. It's just a matter of perhaps focusing it towards this industry. Now, speaking about what France does, if it's of some help, France has, of course, OEMs that have joined. I'm speaking about Airbus, Safran, Thales, Dassault. They joined together and said, oh, we need a supply chain. We need an ecosystem here. And to build this ecosystem, we need to give directions and we need to make sure that all suppliers, all supply chain, all skills are all there. And they started to fill the gap on those holes, putting necessary resources where the gaps were present. So I think India has to work on this strategic plan here as well to see who are the leaders able to pull all this industry, what they need, what kind of skills they need. And of course, everything will come there. Technology. I heard about how they was mentioning about the smelts, the raw material, which is a very important issue, especially in this industry. If you don't have the right availability of those raw materials, the quality of those needed, it's going to be difficult to achieve those goals. So all those gaps must be filled, and it's easy. It's not easy, but it has to be mapped in a certain way, find a strategic way. And I think India has most of everything already available. Perhaps some need to be improved, but everything is there. And with collaborations of perhaps major OEMs, this is a map, as a road to take and to achieve. I think it's definitely at reach. If we regard on the global scale, one of the things that has been always concerning every industrial company in the aerospace, including also Marpos, is the IP protection. And in some areas of the world, there isn't the IP protection. I mean, you're almost sure that if you don't take your necessary steps, your product is going to be copied, or they're going to be fakes, or they're going to be versions of your products there on the market. And some of the larger OEMs have experienced this in the past. So if India is also able to, and I think India is in this condition, to guarantee the protection of the IP of those companies that look for supply chains that are able to supply the equipments with all the security and the safety in terms of IP, there is a big stake and a big place to take here.
Mr. Venkatesh?
Yeah. Thanks, Shikhar. Shikhar, when we talk about aerospace sector projected to reach a valuation of 30 billion or so, effectively, we are actually talking about two different industries. While they are very related, we are talking about a airline or air transport industry, and of course an aerospace manufacturing industry. I think a lot of the panelists here come from a manufacturing side of the thing, but I'll also give my 2 cents on the airline air transport industry as well. Firstly, if you look at, while we are seeing a strong projection and growth in the airline travel, etc., this also has to do with the rising middle class in the country with more disposable income. There's more air travel that's happening, which is also kind of propelling the growth in air transport. And of course, if you also look at some of the initiatives that government is taking as a part of the regional connectivity scheme, late last year we have heard about this UDAN program, where government has brought in this scheme where they talk about Ude Desh Ki Aam Nagrik, where they are trying to boost the regional transport as well. So there are some of these initiatives which is actually really propelling the airline travel in the country, which of course is beneficial to the industry as well, right? But if you delve a little deeper into the industry, like we have already shared in our opening remarks and most of the panelists already commented on, there is a strong traction today for India. There are a lot of tailwinds for India's aerospace industry's growth. See, this is happening in my view primarily because of two reasons. Of course, we have access to a large talent pool, right, in the country, compared, and we also offer very competitive rates compared to any other Western economy where most of the manufacturing happens today. Second thing, if you also take the initiatives that the government is taking in form of Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is also encouraging a lot of indigenous manufacturing, especially in sensitive industries like aerospace and defense. Yes, there's an opportunity. There are lots of tailwinds. There's trends that we are saving, but how do we leverage these? See, and in my conversations and experience in over a decade or so, what most of the OEMs need is conforming parts delivered consistently and on time. That's period. I mean, that's what the OEMs need. And in this particular industry, those are the basic needs which currently a lot of OEMs struggling with. So we have few advantages. Of course, like we spoke about the large talent pool availability. We see about 1.5 million graduates graduating in the country every year. But a lot of this talent is raw talent. We need a lot of upskilling and reskilling that needs to happen once they come to the industry. How do we reduce that learning curve? What are the actions that we can take to reduce that learning curve? Will help this industry propel a long way. Can we look at initiative where we can collaborate with academia to tailor make some of these courses to suit the industry so they become ready when they hit the industry? Those are the initiatives which will really help the industry. And another powerful advantage that we have in India as a country is, thanks to the growth that happened in the IT sector and services in the last couple of decades in the country, we have access to a lot of IT infra and a lot of resources in the IT sector. Now, while we have some of the natural advantages like low labor arbitrage talent pool, how do we leverage this revolution that in IT that happened in India in the manufacturing sector? That's also something which can be really impactful in the industry. So those are some of my thoughts on this one.
Mr. Mayank, please unmute.
Yes. To keep it short, what key factors are driving this growth? I think, largely it's macroeconomic factors that have been covered by the other panelists. Growing population, growing demand for aviation, point-to-point travel, the security situation that India faces, hence, a large demand for defense products. These are some of the factors driving the growth. In terms of how can we leverage, these trends, I believe really it's a factor of when preparation meets opportunity. It's one of those cases. I think the ball really is a lot on the side of Indian manufacturers. We need to be ready for the opportunities when they come. Most certainly they will be coming. Maybe one trend that I can touch upon, because I believe they've mostly been covered. Fabien mentioned collaboration. I think collaboration is an area in India where a lot of promoters and a lot of professionals tend to shy away from collaborating with competitors. I think for a strategic industry like aerospace and defense, I think it's critical. One company cannot do everything. Even not at the large scale, but even at the medium and small scale. For example, we frequently collaborate with surface treatment, painting partners. We collaborate with casting specialists. For me today to get into casting and provide a casting solution would be a very long gestation period. So, leverage the strength that already exists to create maybe a consortium or a platform where we can go and grab a larger opportunity and not just stay at, let's say, a component level.
Srini sir just mentioned, the next level of aerospace industry is yet to be created. We don't have the second line in place. So how to overcome this? Any of the panelists can take this.
Probably I will start. Having said that, probably others
Yes,
can join me. So when we particularly, when I spoke about, there is always the capabilities are available with, as Umar Hardik said, with few of the companies like us in this panelist. I mean, some of the special processes or the raw material. Both these are the areas where there is a huge gap currently. And the third thing is also about process engineering capability, how to deliver the best process. Because if people are not coming because of just the cost arbitration, that is only a kind of limited period advantage what we have. More than that, what we need to add advantage there is about the improved methods or better methods than anybody else is doing today. The reliable methods. So these are the factors where we need to. One is for the process engineering easier one. I think we'll have to just collaborate and train young engineers better and better and invest on the training. And the next level of that is simulation capabilities within our own industry. We'll have to have, as Umar rightly pointed out, maybe we need some government help there. But apart from that, even within our own selves, we'll have to think about the future depends on how do we train our younger generation and then make them to understand how the future is going to be with the creating an advantage of better methods, simulating some of those areas in advance. So that is where the digital engineering comes in, and then we naturally have an advantage on that. So we should make use of that. So collaborating with the institutions, academic institutions, well in advance. For example, we are doing one of those stuff already for the last few years. Probably Hardik, I shared with Hardik few years back. So that's something which we are confident that's going to help us and as well as the industry. Next one is about raw material side, which is a bigger problem for us. There are we pointed out the steel alloys or the inconel alloys or the titanium alloys or the aluminium alloys. There are mills available in India. But the problem is, are they really qualified to the global requirements in terms of the systems, the quality consistency in terms of delivering the quality, and digitization to the expected levels, the transparency that is to the expected levels. And even sometimes when you go and talk to some of these mills, they don't understand the global cost structure also. They sometimes quote out of inexperience, and finally we end up getting a quote which is higher than the developed countries or much higher than the developed countries. So, but the reality is it is some of the awareness to them, and we'll have to share upfront. Sometimes we pull them, the procurement works in a very, very conventional fashion, send an RFQ and expect them to do the magic. It is better, we'll have to walk that extra mile as a collective responsibility to tell them what is the expectation. Of course, within the kind of whatever framework we have. I'm not telling that you'll have to do something which will create another kind of an advantage, undue advantage to these guys. But in terms of what is the expectation in terms of the quality, in terms of the systems, and in terms of what is the global kind of ballpark ranges in which these products are going, and where we expect, why we are doing this in India, from India. So those stuff, and this is something which is normally not shared by any of our sourcing teams, because they just go there, do a quality audit, come back and then tell that these are the gaps. But we'll have to do something more than that and engage with them kind of for a longer period till we succeed. I mean, that is very important, and that urgency has to be there from both sides. This is my next point in terms of the raw material side. And another thing what I want to just talk about is the most important thing. The world is changing fast, and some of the soft factors like sustainability, and India as a country, we are doing enough on that, but it is not properly sold. People still think that we are depending on thermal or coal power, for example, many of the other guys in the developed world. It is not so. We are very much advanced in terms of using renewable energy. We have our factories functioning solar powered today as it is. our new factory is a solar powered factory, and we also lease the wind energy for our own consumption. Or we have our own rainwater harvesting pits, or in terms of using a biodiversity better than anybody else in the world. So all those things, we'll have to structurally collect, integrate them, and package them in such a way that we also stand as an example to the rest of the world. But that thing we'll have we have a collective responsibility to motivate our vendors or our supply chain system to come up and share with us what they are doing, and then integrate it in a better fashion and sell that to the rest of the world. And the last thing what I want to just share with you also, like the diversity is another factor which is very important. As already we see the colleges, the diversity levels are changing dramatically in India. And as a company, we love to have the diversity as a factor, which really is a smart way of doing business, because when diversity, the woman power is better than the manpower in terms of some of the thinking styles, and they add much more value than the manpower. The woman power is adding more value to our businesses. So we'll have to be very confident ourselves about doing that and take a lead in doing that ahead of anybody else. Those are the few of my points. Over to you, Sheikh.
If there is no second line, it is a sustainable problem.
Yeah, it's a sustainable problem. Let's continue to work on it.
Mr. Hardik?
No, I was just trying to say, it's also the mindset, right? While all that Sini said makes sense, it's the mindset. It's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen overnight. You'll have to be persistent. You'll have to develop the next line. And I think it's as we, all of us, mature in this industry, it's our job to develop the next level ecosystem. We've done that to the best possible extent. A lot of times it's not easy when you're trying to sell it to somebody back in the US or Europe. You go to a facility which is just budding, but you got to look at the right attitude and make a calculated risk and investing in MSMEs. I think in addition to raw material and special processes, I think developing the next level of MSME is another critical aspect. You look at any developed economies, you look at US, Europe, they have these sources, and unless you have those sources, it's going to be hard. Now, the good thing is we have the automotive supply chain. There are several players who have pivoted from automotive to aerospace, and I think we need to do a lot more in that space. Pina is a great example in Bangalore, where we've developed several suppliers. But is it just Pina? Are there other clusters, to Uma's point? And this came up in our conversation as well. We got to have these clusters where you have the tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, and tier 4s, and you need to develop those. And it all boils down to mindset, being persistent, investing in developing folks at the next year.
And Uma did mention that we need to create more mega aerospace clusters and parks. How is that going to be happening? Is it on the PPP mode, or only the government has to take the initiative?
Is it the question for me?
Yes, Uma.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. So it's government has a huge role to play. Obviously, it's not 100%, but government can actually set up the basic infrastructure, the test facilities, manufacturing facilities, and then give the incentives, like tax benefits, those things, and then also help in skill development. So government has a huge role to play. But let me tell you one thing which is very, very pivotal to this whole thing is, if we ask, we have all these aspirations as a country that we want to be the leader, but I don't see a single document, a vision from government that here is the vision and here is the plan. That in 20-30 years we will emerge as one of the leader, and here is the role of government, here is the role of industry, here is the role of academia. We don't have such a document. Whereas if you look at the Western models, where they have laid out the product and technology roadmaps for next 30-40 years. And for example, the future of aerospace aviation is going to be around sustainability. So how the industry and each of this country will become sustainable in terms of aviation, there's a roadmap. And then they have very clearly laid out the roles of industry, academia, and government, and there is funding So there is a plan. So we don't have this, So to your question, absolutely yes. Government has to actually initiate. First, to start with the roadmap. We have also aspirations to develop our own, for example, civilian aircraft. But there is no roadmap. It happens, haphazardly. But we need to really think, right? How do we pull in the governments, the strategic partnerships, so that we realize one day that we can have our own products. And I just wanted to touch upon two simple things. I really liked what Venkatesh talked about. Okay, so we can, if we really plan, we could be the hub today. Middle East is the hub for the aviation. It's a hub and spoke model. Typically, it has been established. So Middle East is that hub, right? We all, most of the folks from India and other countries, they go there and then take on the international flights. But with the future of the long range, wide body aircraft, even in the narrow body aircraft, you can actually disrupt this model. India can be the hub. But for that to happen, if folks from other countries have to come to India and go to different places, or we as Indians have to go to other places, we have to build the most modern, airports. And there are countries like, Singapore, Malaysia, some of these countries, their whole economy depends on the way they have built the aerospace aviation ecosystem, because, airports play such a role. So it's not about just building an airport so that, flights take off, but we have to think of how can we build the most modern airports so that everybody want to fly from this place and then create that hub. So that's one thing. The second thing is supply chain. We are talking a lot around manufacturing. I am sorry to say that we are again going to miss this bus. If you look at the biggest problem in aviation, whether it is airlines, the aircraft manufacturers or engine manufacturers, or all the manufacturers related to aviation, we are seeing unprecedented growth. So we have already, the airlines have placed record number of aircraft orders. They have to probably wait for 7-8 years to get those aircraft. The reason, we are not having that much of supply chain capacity globally. Okay. Had we thought about this, say, maybe a couple of decades ago or even a decade ago, and planned, some path, we would have been in a much better position to be a global supplier. So, however, I see great policies from government, and hopefully we will be able to do this in the future. But right now, supply chain is a big constraint for aviation market, and we are talking about quality, cost, and then also sustainability of the supply chain, meaning there has to be no disruptions. So we need to really think of how we can address this problem. But yeah, these kind of opportunities would come, and we must be in a position to take full advantage of those.
On this aspect, I would like to take the foreign perspective. Mr. Fabian, how is France supporting the aerospace industry, especially the MSME sector, and which can be replicated back in India?
That's a good question. Well, as I said earlier, there is an organization in France that is structuring the aerospace industry with I would say the major players going down the whole chain of supplies and covering all the needs, and creating this way a very organized and very structured system. The key players are the tier one, actually the OEMs, and they have seen that the major challenge in the future, sustainability, and I put this as number one because in Europe it's becoming a major issue, and digitalization. I mean, the digital views are key elements for them to succeed in the future, and to be able to achieve. They have created an organization called CORAC, which is helping all the supply chain to reach the standards that they want. They shoulder them, they bring them, or actually they ask them to attend and to invest in these technologies so that they can reach the level that they expect. I think this map this structuring is definitely close to what should be done also in India. Major role players in India could actually pull the string and make sure that all the supply chain behind is there and is up to the standard. It's not going to be an easy task. That requires to sit together on a table, discuss together, find a roadmap, as Mr. Uma said, and build this in a way that the industry could provide the basic requirements to the aerospace industry and the role players in India. By doing this also, you will definitely attract customers from overseas. If they see that there is a structured organization there, there's a structured industry, everybody would like to jump in because India has, as I said, those major advantages that are a population which is educated. You have definitely ways to guarantee the IP protection. And also, I wouldn't speak about costs because cost is an important aspect, but definitely India here has an advantage. And when it comes to the future, the drivers from what we think is, of course, sustainability in its broader side. With the new generations of engines, with the SAF. I mean, we'll speak about this later, but this is our major players. And as well, the role that the industry can have in the global economy of India. Automotive industry is now changing drastically. Some of the suppliers are looking for new markets. There are opportunities here to increase and grow with the supply chain. So I would say, in that sense, more or less, it's a matter of organization in India. People have to join forces together to make sure that there is a solid fundamentals here to make an industry strong with a supply chain and with all the people having the right systems to manufacture and produce what is required.
We'll move to the next question. This is to Venkatesh. The Director General of Civil Aviation records indicate that India's domestic air passenger traffic grew 8.34% year on year to 15.2 crore in the calendar year 2023. In the backdrop of this sizable growth, what challenges do manufacturers and suppliers face in meeting the rising demand of aircraft and services, and how they can overcome these hurdles?
Sure. Thanks, Shikhar. See, we already spoke about the factors which are driving this kind of growth right in the country. Now, when we look at challenges, there are two different perspectives that I would like to bring in. One is, what are the external challenges and what are the internal challenges? So it's very important when we tackle any problem to look at it externally as well as inward as well. So externally, if you look at, and like some of the panelists already mentioned, even today we depend a lot of our material requirements on imports. Even today, materials like aluminum, Inconel, nickel, and cobalt steels, pretty much more than 90% of the material that we use in the aerospace manufacturing industry, we still continue to import. What it also means is larger lead times for production, so which also not let us plan very effectively. It requires a very precise planning and leaves us with very little room for error. Now, second external challenge that I also see for us to tackle this kind of demand is access to affordable capital. Today, while a lot of Western economies where most of manufacturing happens, the capital is a lot more efficient and a lot more affordable when compared to the capital cost that we get in India. We also have to find ways and means. How do we make capital also easily and also at a more effective rate available to Indian manufacturers? That's also something that will really boost this. Second thing, if I look at inward as an industry, see, aerospace industry also is a very sensitive industry and for rightful reasons. So quality is paramount. How do we ensure that we keep delivering our components consistently, conforming to the specifications on time is something which will keep us the game. That's the name of the game at the end of the day. What we also need to do is, like I mentioned in my earlier thoughts as well, how do we leverage the technology piece and bring in tech so that we can keep improving our ability to deliver components and platforms consistently and on time to this thing will help us be at the right at front and center of the global aerospace manufacturing wave that's happening right now. See, today we have seen, of course, a lot of OEMs talking about they not being able to meet the demand because of issues with the supply chain, right? But today we are at a phase where some of the OEMs are talking about moving from a rate of 40 to 75 aircrafts in single aisle. Once Boeing also stabilizes its needs on 737 MAX, we are going to see even further growth. How do we, as a industry, tackle and be prepared for this growth by taking some of the actions that we have spoken about and the other panelists spoken about will determine how successful India could be as an aerospace player?
I would like to go next, if that's okay. Sorry, you're muted, but I'm assuming you're giving me the go ahead.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so actually, I really enjoyed one of the points that Venkatesh just touched upon, and I would like to give my view as well as a, from the manufacturer side, not the OEM side, which I believe is well covered by Mr. Hardik and Uma. Cost of capital today, I believe, is one of the biggest constraints that, at least at the MSME side, the industry is facing. We've seen the government in its latest budget announced in June try to tackle this by providing, a guarantee to MSMEs. Let's see how that plays out. Today, it is just, words on paper. Let's see how it is implemented. But overall, if you see cost of capital in Europe today, it is below 5%. You look at cost of capital in Japan or in America, if you look 2 years ago, it was 1 to 2%. Today, of course, cost of capital is rising in America. This really puts India at a disadvantage. Today, as an MSME, you go to raise debt. You're looking at anywhere between 8 to 15%. At a larger company, you're looking at maybe 6 to 9 to 10%. Okay, let's say you do everything right, and now your customer expects you to scale up. How does a business scale up? You need money. Money comes at a large cost. So this, for sure, is today one of the largest constraints faced by the manufacturer or the supplier. Beyond this, I would like to touch on the labor piece. Today, of course, India's biggest strength is man and labor, but I also see it as one of the biggest challenges while scaling up. You look at it from two perspectives. One is from the cost angle. Today I would like to actually challenge how much labor arbitrage actually exists within India. Of course, it does exist, and there is a big difference. Hence, there's so much business coming. But how deep is that labor arbitrage? I believe that labor gap is closing much faster than we are believing. You take an example of the textiles industry. Today, India got left behind in textiles manufacturing. You had countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh come and actually provide a far deeper cost advantage than we could. Is that a chance that may happen today in aerospace in India? I cannot say for sure that it is not a chance. Today the labor market has plenty of opportunities. You have startups, you have software. You take a market like Bangalore. I had a supply chain engineer do a 3-month online course on C++ and get 2.5 times salary switching to Infosys as a junior position. So there are very realistic problems and a lot of demands on the labor force. You throw in on top of all these issues, you throw in automation. If you look at a country like Japan, they are almost fully automized. They have an aging population. You can't rely on young hands to provide physical labor. So they have moved to robots. You look at the America or UK, they are moving lock, stock, and barrel towards automation. What role does that play in India? Again, today, cost-wise, it does not make sense. But do we need to look at it from an advantage perspective? Today, if we do have a reduction in cost of capital, is automation something we should look at? So overall, I think automation in the West plus the rising labor cost in India, it's squeezing the labor cost advantage and arbitrage that we have. So this would probably be the second largest challenge. And finally, R&D and training. Again, as a company today, not just doing BT pre, we are also doing a lot of build to spec work in terms of electronic manufacturing. We are, building avionics displays for fighter aircrafts. The large issue we face today is training manpower, in a very niche set of skills. I would say that across the market, there may not be more than 20 companies doing design and development of onboard avionics. Amongst these 20 companies, we are fighting over, let's say, a a limited labor pool of maybe 500 to 1,000 specialized individuals. So how do we increase this large labor pool? How do retain this talent, and how do you actually get enough business to feed this type of business line? If it is just your occasional one-time order from a company like HAL, that is really not good enough to keep this business thriving. You do need to look at OEMs such as Collins, GE, looking at moving electronics manufacturing. That is really where a lot of your moat can be created around your labor and talent.
No, I think just wanted to add something to what Mayank mentioned. I think Mayank, you're spot on. We being in India being a low-cost country is incidental, right? And it's not going to remain like this for ever. I think we'll have to continue to reinvent and find opportunities and ways. How do we remain competitive in the global market? Of course, one of the ways is, like Hardik mentioned, how do we keep moving up the value chain and start adding more value in the value chain so that we can continue to leverage what we have. No, I think I echo with your thoughts, Mayank. I think great thoughts.
Moving on to the next question. When it comes to investment, can I ask Mr. Hardik, India has attracted significant investments from global aerospace majors. What strategies can India implement to continue attracting FDI in the aerospace sector? And how can the local players capitalize on these investments? Mr. Hardik?
No, I think great question. India has done several things right. There's several things that India can do right in terms of attracting FDI investments. I'm going to now switch gears and move away from commercial aviation to defense. Right. Let's talk about our defense policies. Right. And some of my co-panelists talk about if we were to grow our defense capabilities, if we were to take a pole position, it's not just the Indian market. We got to think about the export markets. We got to think about creating enterprises that last for long. And today, look at our policies. They tend to be very conservative. Under our DAP 2020, 74% FDI is allowed. But today, all the wholly owned subsidiaries of, any American, French, any company cannot participate in a lot of these deals. We're forced to, go work with some of the local Indian companies, potentially from JVs, and so on and so forth. So I think that needs to change. Strategic partnership, and I'll talk about a couple of examples. Let's talk about Korea for an example, right? KAI builds a lot of fighter planes, and now they are competing for US Air Force contracts. And why is that possible? They have a partnership with Lockheed Martin. They have a very solid foundation on which they're starting. We don't necessarily have that. That needs to change if we were to, promote our defense industry. We need to have a global competitive edge. It cannot be just the DPSUs that run the business. As we speak, we are working with several DPSUs to see how we can strategically partner with them. What could be those key areas of strategic partnership where we can work with them, not just to support the Indian market, but also to potentially export some of their platforms. We have such partnerships with Embraer and likes of Embraer to potentially promote their programs all over the world. So we're open to such collaboration. That needs to happen. Additionally, let's talk a little bit about MRO sector, right? The taxation has been eased out very recently, which is great. But there's still room for more. State to state, there's policies about, CAPEX, cashbacks, PLIs. And that's part one. But the part two, if you look at some of the Singapore or Dubai type of an ecosystem, they have a 10-year tax holiday. Right? For all the MRO type investment, if we're talking, if we want to walk the talk, I think we need to ratify some of these tax holidays, have a centralized incentive policies around the MROs. And again, when you talk about MRO, India's demand alone may or may not be sufficient. You'll have to pull in demand across the region, Asia Pacific region, to be able to make a business case, because all of these MROs would require significant investment. So I think those are some of my thoughts. I'll rest my case there.
Earlier, when we were talking before the session started, we were talking to Fabian Vincent. He did say that India's perspective has completely changed overseas or in the last few years. As far as technological innovations and innovations are concerned, as a country with strengths in precision engineering and additive manufacturing, how can India enhance further its technological capabilities to compete in the global scale in the aerospace industry, Mr. Fabian?
Well, this has to come with what the customers, what the market requires. And I think we are here in the breach where we must secure, well, but what we have to do is the supply chain has to secure the compliance of the products that they manufacture and guarantee that the products manufactured are compliant with the processes that are required. I will give you an example of one of the systems that has been grown now currently from one of our major OEMs. What they enforced is what we call the closed door machining. What they don't want is a process to be interrupted and generating errors in the way the parts are manufactured. So enforcing closed door machining requires to have systems inside that can monitor the process. In other words, sensors, data collecting systems, and data certification systems. And when you have such kind of process going on, you make sure, or you can guarantee to your customer, you can guarantee to your suppliers that what you have manufactured is actually exactly what has to be manufactured. And when the technology comes to enforce these new kind of technology, new kind of systems, being able to guarantee that the process are going on all the way it should go. And this goes not only on the manufacturing and machining side, but it goes start with guaranteeing that the materials, the raw materials, the steel, the alloys are on the right materials. So there are certifications on the beginning of the chain, that the process of machining is done well, that the measurements of the controls there of the parts are done according to the way it should be done. You have here a complete chain that is guaranteed. So here the challenge, and I think Europe is enforcing currently a process which is called DCC, which is a digital calibration certificate, allows for those who are using those DCCs to guarantee simply that what they've used for measuring equipment is guaranteed and it has a certificate. If we can do this on the whole process, from raw material to machining process with monitoring systems inside, digitizing systems inside, to the certification at the end, you make sure that in that way, everything that comes out is actually good. So I think this major technological breakthrough comes through the digital area, where we have to move on this way, gathering all the information and structuring the information in forms that can be accessible to the customers, because they will enforce this. They will ask for more and more digital certification and abilities to prove that what has been done properly. We can see this in the world of the MRO. We can see this in the world of flying parts manufacturing. And going through there will allow actually this technological breakthrough in the digital area to consolidate the position in the supply chain and consolidate them as reliable suppliers. We have also seen, for instance, a certain difficulty to break through in new technologies in the area of machining or working parts, simply because what has been good in the past is still good today, and people don't want to actually change drastically the way things have been manufactured, unless there is a request coming from the tier one actually, or the OEMs. And when they say, no, this part is no more machined, this part is made through additive manufacturing, for instance, that's the change that is operated in the industry. So we must be ready and also anticipating those moves, which is easy to say, but actually this is happening and it's going on as it goes. And to be able to provide to our customers the latest technology, which has the one requested currently by the customers. So what I want to say here is we have seen this digital area becoming a strong transformation of the industry. The requirements in terms of OQD, OTD certification is all the way through. We have to make it lean, and you have to make it possible to happen. So that was one of the things that I think is a major challenge there.
Can I ask Mr. Uma Maheshwar, when we come to supply chain dynamics, what roles does this aerospace supply chain play in India's growth story? How can collaborations between manufacturers, suppliers, and the government bodies optimize this ecosystem?
Yeah. So definitely the supply chain is one of the big. That's the current challenge, and also I also see a bit of a silver lining here. We talked a lot already that we don't have some basic capabilities, whether it is related to raw material, castings, forgings. You highlighted precision manufacturing. I would imagine that is from the point of space, but really not from aviation. I can speak from engine point of view. We can't source any of the raw material, and because we don't have those facilities. Okay, so there are varieties of materials which are being used in a jet engine, but we can't even source any of this. So to your point, there is a huge opportunity for government to, as I said, right, help nurture this ecosystem through policies. So the advantage that I see is for not being there in the past is definitely a disadvantage, but we can start from on a clean sheet of paper, right? So uh, can we think of setting up the world-class, let's say, casting facility or raw material facility, right? So these are really clean slate opportunities. And then that is coupled with the latest, greatest processes. For example, lean manufacturing. Okay, so it's a greatest, the modern factory with modern processes like lean manufacturing, and that coupled with the industry 4.0 themes, right? So we must really think of industry 4.0 when we think of supply chain or manufacturing. So I would say, can we think of setting up the best in class smart manufacturing factories in India around these, whether it is, manufacturing, machining, forging, casting, name it. And I see that, we probably need, something like 5,000 MSMEs, not 500. Yeah, we need 5,000 companies, and each of these companies should be specialized in certain aspects, not that they all compete and kill each other, right? So that's the kind of policy and the ecosystem that we need to develop. Again, when we design this system, for example, if this company is best suited for this kind of a component or kind of capabilities, we need to align with the strengths of that company or geographical location or their legacy, skills, and really come out with this, this whole ecosystem. So that's where I see we can really change the game. And government, again, as I said, I keep telling that it's really the role of government to really take that initiative, identify all the stakeholders, and then really deliver over a period of time.
Srini sir, you were talking about sustainability initiatives as a concern. With increasing emphasis on sustainable aviation practices, how can India position itself as a leader in developing and implementing sustainable technologies and such as sustainable aviation fuel and electric propulsion systems?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. Yeah, it is required globally. It's a global commitment made by every country to to just reach the needed sustainable green whatever levels of emission levels. So it's a commitment required from each and every industry, each and every player to what we talk about. Some of the initiatives, what I told you already, like what we are picking up, it should result in like can we get a green product labeled product out from India from all our vendors? Can we talk about that? So that requires kind of there's an audit requirement, like, you'll have to have something basic starting from ISO 50001 certification for your own stuff, where the energy conservation plays a greater role instead of not only going and setting up solar panels and say, like, I'm a renewable energy producer, but to be competitive, can you also conserve your energy with the innovative ways of using your equipment in a productive way, or you adapting technologies which can give you a kind of an energy consumption edge, where, like, we have a ambitious goal of conserving X% of units, absolute numbers every year. That's something which people should adapt. And finally, can we ship green? Our product should be labeled as a green product labeled products we can ship and export to the rest of the world. That is the situation what we want to do, but it is doable. There are many companies in India which I know, and I'm part of their journey also, like, where they are already shipping parts with green product labels. Second thing, for sustainability, it has to start from simple things like, it's a thought process, basically. It's a change in attitude. Some simple things like, going for a simple solar street lights instead of, if you are not capable of going for a solar powered factory, or going for LED lamps wherever, it gives a little power consumption, less power consumption, or going for a better high velocity, low speed fans in your factory instead of going for an air conditioning wherever it is not really required to kill the power. So those are all certain initiatives. And I'm sure, like, there's a huge awareness happening across the industry on these sustainable initiatives, and it is percolating down to the people. And I see some of the Indian companies are leading in the global stage for some of the on some of these topics, and then demonstrating to the rest of the world that we can do it together. So that is possible. And more importantly, it's not about sustainability only stands at sustainability level. By improving productivity in our own factories, we are contributing to the sustainability. So that is an important factor. Reduce your scrap levels. Recycle the product, whatever we are using. Reuse the products, that is very important for us, not to just buy and throw the product. So that will have to be just reduce, recycle, reuse. We'll have to be really doing it in everything, whatever we do. So that is very, very important for us. And we are making progress. But the point is, we need a mass, and it has to, whether we like it or not, it is going to be compelled at some point in time by our customers or by the government bodies also to enforce. This will be enforced on us over a period of time. So better we take a lead in these areas and train entire supply chain on that, so that we adapt this faster and set an example to the rest of the world. I see a huge opportunity here.
Recently, sir, we had one program in our office where Mr. Dr. Sundararajan Varadarajan, CEO of Adya Aerospace Private Limited Technology, did say that we are living in a world where you buy a laptop, by the time you reach home, it is outdated. So technology is moving at that speed, and therefore, together comes the opportunities and also the challenges. How do we cope this sort of a dynamic situation, sir? Any of the panel can take this question.
I think to answer simply, you need to be very flexible and nimble enough to, be aware of what is coming and tune yourself to that. I think, needless to say, the biggest revolution that will be coming and is already coming is AI, for example. If you talk about obsolescence and pace of technological innovation, this is something probably unprecedented, where the growth or the innovation level is not linear but actually exponential. So yeah, just be aware of it and prepare for it.
Mr. Hardik?
Yeah, I think that's right. You got to look at your technology landscape, look at 10-year, 20-year horizon, what's coming, and you got to balance. They say you got to balance exploration and exploitation. You got to have right amount of funds allocated, right amount of organization created, and I'll give you a couple of examples of how the innovation is going to change. Now, innovation and technology changes drastically in other industry, but aerospace, it takes much longer. All my colleagues would agree, because of the safety and certification qualification requirement. So as we see, electrification is going to be one big trend. And we are investing significantly in terms of electrification. The second trend that we see about sustainable material systems, not just the sustainable factories, but recyclable materials. Again, made some acquisitions in that space. And you got to have a forethought of next 10, 20 years where the technology, and you got to take some calculated risks. Not everything will pay off, but some of them will pay off.
So I have a point here. Basically, it's like, I like the comment, like before you come home, the technology is changing, but we have to be careful. I mean, everything is changing fast in the world. I think we'll have to be very selective. That's a very right point. People chase the technology. Sometimes you should not do that. You should understand what is really required for your business to be ahead in the game. It is just not the technology which will take you ahead. It is more than that, something more than that. You'll have to be very selective in doing that. Select the right thing, what you really want to be successful in that game. And not to do something and then create a lot of wastages or create inefficiency in system and then finally keep crying about capital. So we'll have to select the right thing and be productive about whatever we are doing and add value to the customer. I think this should be our focus instead of worrying too much about technology at sometimes. At some point in time, I see people talking more about technology than talking about how that impact of that in your business to be productive. I think it's a double-edged sword. You'll have to be better be aware of it and choose the right one.
Mr. Umar?
Yeah, let's take some credit here as a country, because if you look at the digital IT stuff, right? We are the country which really adopted this change. There are technological changes and disruptions, but India has emerged as a leader despite all these disruptions. So it has already happened. And if you look at some of the attributes for this success, it's it's a younger population. And we have the passion, the hunger. There are different things, of course, government policies, etc. So when it comes to aerospace, the question is, why are we not leveraging this, right? So that's a question that we should ask. And just to tell you, the future of aerospace aviation is going to be highly disruptive. The aircraft will look different. The propulsion systems are going to be different. And I'm proud to say that a lot of that, the future of flight related work actually happens in G India Technology Center. So I'm very close to it. So I can just say that, like, for example, we talked about sustainable aviation fuel. We talked, we are working on how to burn, for example, hydrogen so that it becomes sustainable, electric propulsion, advanced materials, advanced concepts of flight. And, so there are so many things, again, it's an Indian talent which is already working. Now the question is, I think the broader question is, what are some of these technological advancements that India can be known for? Okay. And for that, how do we adopt the change? And the very first step is to be aware of what's coming in our way and then be able to navigate through and then be comfortable. And then at some point of time, we become the leaders. So again, it's a mindset, right? Instead of follower of technology, we need to be really the leader of technology and the thought leader of the technology. Let me put it that way, which exactly what we have done in the case of IT. And that's what we need in sectors like aerospace.
Taking the same line, the revolution what India brought in the IT and automobiles industry is now being easily replicated in the aerospace and related components and service sector. Do you buy this statement, sir? Any of the panelists can take this.
Yes, it is possible. It is going to happen that way only. I mean, I just keep telling people it's not only the IT or the automobile, it's including the telecom revolution, whatever happened in India. I keep that as an example recently. If you see like 20 years back, the telecom, like, we all used to go and stand in queue to make phones to our homes or wait for a phone connection for several years. But India did not depend on the landline connection penetration to be filled and then switched over to the mobile revolution. We just, all of a sudden, before even 20% of the landline penetration, we jumped to the mobile revolution. And today we have more than 1 billion digital connections available in the country. That is what is going to happen in the transportation sector also. It is not that India is going to wait for whole country to be, having nice roads and then travel will become easier. No, it is not going to happen like that. The way our middle class is booming, expected to be more than 40% of the population is going to cross the middle class income, after 2030, is going to be 500 million people who are likely to fly instead of waiting for the good roads. That is the kind of revolution likely to happen. And we just should be prepared with all the points discussed here and engaging in that and then make it happen.
I'll move away slightly to a political question. I'll take this liberty. Donald Trump is back at the helm of affairs in the US now. What does Trump's victory mean for India as far as aerospace and defense sector is concerned, specifically for India?
Opportunity. Just to put it simply.
Yeah, Mayank.
Yeah, if I can talk, purely on the defense side and not commercial aviation. So this is actually a very interesting topic. We personally, we meaning my company, we have been, talking to a lot of defense OEMs in the US. The feeling is that they are waiting for our government to, really buy equipment from them before they start manufacturing heavily in India. I can take the example. Let me not take names of any OEMs, but I don't know. To be very honest, I have a bit of a contrarian view versus Mr. Srinivasan, because at least on the defense side, I think a little bit of that domestic, national pride. Hey, let's move manufacturing back to India. To some extent, that may exist, especially, given defense's political nature, where it's a lot about keeping jobs local, keeping local manufacturers alive. So that I do believe does present maybe the potential to slow down the transition from US manufacturing to Indian manufacturing. But yes, I believe on the civil and commercial aviation, I don't believe there should be any slowdown. Assuming that he is beneficial for the US economy in general, that should have a follow-on impact, a follow-on positive impact in civil and commercial aviation.
There is a question to Mr. Fabian from one of our participants. What are the challenges faced by Indian defense manufacturers?
I got a frozen. Okay, sorry. Can you please repeat the question?
Globally.
I didn't get full. Sorry, I'm sorry. You were cut off for a short time, so I didn't get.
There is a question from one of our participants, Mr. Kunal Deshmukh. He's asking you, what are the challenges faced by Indian defense manufacturers competing globally?
Oh. I think the major challenges are to being able to show to the market that to customers, to the global customers, that you have the skills and the ability to manufacture, to produce the products that are requested to the standards that are the international standards. So that means you have to, at a certain point, demonstrate that your production tools, production equipments, production facilities are to the standard. I think the advantages that India has here, as I said earlier, of course, it's an advantage in terms of education, the access of language, definitely it's a big advantage. And also the capability to protect intellectual property from your customers. These advantages are major players, I think. Of course, when we speak about technology and when we speak about manufacturing, you always need the machine tools, you always need the measuring equipment, you always need all what is required in terms of prerequisite to manufacture those products. But definitely, should you have another advantage here, it is the skills that you have in your companies, the forces that you have in your companies. It is the ability to communicate with the customers. And I think India here is in a good position, as you said earlier, also geographically and also in terms of time gap. And definitely here there is those advantages here that should be put forward. I would like just to add one thing. What is going to happen in the forthcoming years in the aerospace industry are major changes, major gaps. When we spoke about previously technological changes, from CFM56 engine to LEAP engine, you had practically roughly 30% of the parts, moving parts or parts inside that were changed from this technology to the one. From LEAP technology to the new generation of open rotor engines, such as the RISE engine, which we are talking about. There is everything that changes. Everything is changing. This is the momentum. This is the momentum where you can grab a chance here and enjoy those technical changes to be able to take a position in the market. And I think this is what's going to happen with SAF, with electrification of the new generation of aircraft. We're speaking about hydrogen, fuel cells, all sorts of new technology coming up. There is definitely a position there for India to take in this regard.
There's another question, Mr. Fabian, to you from Mr. Bojraj. Is there any TOT or software or co-creation, co-development kind of an opportunities for Indian Aerospace from your Marpos side?
Definitely, yes. There could be possibilities. Actually, we believe that artificial intelligence is going to take a major position in both manufacturing cycles, manufacturing monitoring, manufacturing understanding of what are the key elements that can improve the manufacturing production. But also we believe that artificial intelligence is going to be a major element in the MRO processes, because diagnosis is currently, and MRO is currently in the hands of experts, which is very important, but it takes a lot of time to bring the expert to the level that is requested. This can be probably enhanced as well with artificial intelligence. And if we have products, if we have availability of softwares that can help the people making MRO to make better work, faster, more secure, we got there a very interesting position. I take an example, for instance, endoscopes currently, which are used massively in diagnosis of engines, are more and more coming up with artificial intelligence that will give information about what's going on inside the engine. And we are going to that. We're going to that kind of thing. So yes, software in that regard is something we definitely believe it's interesting.
There's another question from Mr. Justin Thomas. It's to the panel, any one of the panelists. What certifications are typically required for machine manufacturers to guarantee the safety and security of workers, including relevant TUV certifications and other industry standards?
Oh, that's a very sharp question, I must say. There, I must say, I'm not a specialist in certification processes, rather. So I would definitely put myself on side on this question.
Mr. Hardik or Venkatesh, Mr. Uma, anybody?
I would get it started, but I would like my co-panelists to add. I think, fundamental certifications that you need are, of course, and if I got this question right, you need AS9100, that's the fundamental, that's a license to do any aerospace business, right? When it comes to special processes, you got to have the NADCAP certifications in place. From an EHS perspective, you may be looking at various ISO certifications, but then it actually boils down to the specific process qualifications and material qualifications. And those are typically done by respective OEMs, be it Boeing, Airbus, Collins, GE, Rolls-Royce. Everyone has their own certifications and processes, which are very specific to a product or a part that you're trying to manufacture. I'd like my co-panelists to add.
I think from a manufacturing perspective, Hardik, you have covered it all. Question was also more from a perspective of machine tool manufacturing, which again lies outside my area of expertise as well. But I think from a manufacturing perspective, Hardik kind of covered it all.
Fine. Let us conclude this session with any of the panelists taking the business outlook for Indian aerospace industry.
I can take. So I think, it goes back to, I think, the very first question that you asked about the landscape So I think we are in the best position and best of the best times when it comes to aerospace and aviation, in my opinion, because we are going to see technological disruptions. So we can now see how India can play a role, be it the digital manufacturing, additive manufacturing, MRO space. A lot of this would be actually driven from digital. So that's one. The second thing is from the commercial aviation, right? We talked about, can we disrupt the market? Can we be the hub? Can we be this, the most modern, country with the best of the best infrastructure so that we can attract the passengers, all that. And then when it comes to defense, of course, being such a big market, with both modernization and new products, can we look beyond and can we actually leverage these opportunities and become a global player? So that's the one. And I think where I see is the biggest challenge is in terms of the policies. We talked a lot about what is the role of a government. So we can reimagine the industry, academia, government relationship. I would say let's start with this vision and then specify the roles, responsibilities, and then what are the government policies, and really create these ecosystems, be it the clusters or SEZs, all that. And then our goal is to really be the player, particularly when it comes to, say, for example, manufacturing, and that's a focus area for us. So far, it is predominantly some of the government companies which had the infrastructure and the machineries. Now the question is, how can we enable the private companies and particularly the MSMEs, so that they can actually invest in, and then the name of the game in aerospace is always technology and quality, right? So flight safety is a paramount, right? So we need to consistently produce these parts with very high quality, so that kind of a safety quality mindset is very, very important. So how do we nurture that culture, is a very important thing. And I'm really concerned to see that many of the good institutes do not have mechanical engineering nowadays, right? Because they see there is a very less demand. We don't talk much about it, but it's actually the concern. Even if some of the folks study mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering, their goal is to join in a company where they do some kind of a software type of an engineering, right? So engineering is actually is looking like a software type of a job. That's not practical aspects of making stuff, designing stuff, not just thinking of everything to be an IT type of a job. So there has to be a complete, mindset change. So I see that, sessions like these would be very, very helpful to really tell the story about, how does the aerospace aviation engineering is going to look different? How is it going to be more rewarding and more challenging than other fields of engineering, as an example, so that we create that passion, not just only in academia, not only in industry, but also with government folks, because I think we are at that inflection point where we are going to see all disruptions on one hand, but a huge opportunity at the same time.
Can we get a foreign perspective on Mr. Fabian?
Yes, I think it's all said here. It's definitely a momentum coming up with opportunities, a change of mindset. As you said, also human resources, skilled resources. You see, in our country, we have the same issues with, as you said, mechanical engineering, right? People dream about the factory without putting hands on in oil or in machines or things, and it's not like this. In this world, you need to have your hands on and make sure that what you do is to the standard, to the quality, to the expectation. We always say, customers, after they get a good price, they want the best quality and they want thing on time. So this cannot be achieved by approx technology. It has to be sharp. It has to be precise, and it has to be done with skills. So I think the human point is definitely one of the key elements here that have to come. And what I heard earlier also about terms of capex and able, to find, especially for SMEs, to find money or to find finance at a good rate. This is important. You must. I mean, India has to consider that other countries are helping their SMEs, their small, medium-sized companies. They're helping them by providing tax relief and allowing them to invest. And because investment is definitely the key here to a sharp and strong industry.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to all the panelists. It was a great privilege personally for me to anchor this wonderful session. I take this opportunity to thank all our panelists for this very comprehensive knowledge sharing capsule. It is always a pleasure to listen to such great speakers. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.